And we are now live streaming customer MTB's machine.
Well, and as soon as people show up, which we can't even see the chat, which is going to be interesting.
Hey, did somebody go live?
Yes, and I'm about to check on it.
Now, that sounds overdriven to me. I'm hearing a lot of room noise. Is that what that is?
Yeah, that's always been there. That's
okay.
actually probably your headphones are turned up very loud.
I have a thing for that. There we go. My headphones have been turned down, but now I don't hear myself. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Pre-show.
And has chat loaded. You've got an ad.
Of course I do.
Look, make us 0.000000001 cent.
Well, it's a full-on 20-minute, 20-second ad.
Yep. Remember, we're a Twitch partner now.
How much have we made off our partnership so far?
I have no idea. I've never gotten a check from Twitch.
Yeah.
So my assumption is exactly $0.
$0.
If we ever get one, I'll let you know.
Sorry, what was that, Chris?
I was just saying best partnership ever.
Yeah. So I have to make a really terrible Legion list for Alad.
Oh, yeah, I heard that you guys were going to do this.
We're going to make each other a list
fight.
That's absolutely fucking terrible.
Well, what was the one that Tim made for Menoth? There was one theme where you used to be able to take unlimited racks.
It's all racks.
It turned racks into FAU, and it was like, I can't remember who it was. It was like somebody with nothing but buffs.
Oh, apparently I'm quiet. You might want to bring me, which is weird.
Yeah, you're like maxed out here too.
Really?
Yeah, like
gain up top. There's a gain knob.
Blue one?
No, black. Up above the normal set of knobs is a tiny little black knob.
Whoa.
Yeah, a little. So turn down the slider.
Yeah, bring up the gain, bring down my slider, and then I'm not maxed out. There we go.
And you should do that, it looks like, with yourself as well.
That sounds pretty good, actually. I can hear.
Checkity check the tiny.
All right, Chris, we need to check your audio. So tell us what television show you're binge watching.
I am currently rewatching Criminal Minds. I'm watching the first few seasons over again.
Is that on what did you find Criminal Minds on, or did you download it illegally?
It used to be on Netflix. I've actually got it on DVD, so I've been working my way through those the old-fashioned way.
My wife is a huge Criminal Minds fan, and I've been torturing her for years that they're going to turn the blonde guy into basically a Dexter character by the end of it, and he'll have been like a serial killer that's been killing all the other serial killers.
That was my
because he's basically a serial killer, right? Like, I mean, everything about him is like scream serial killer.
I thought he was just autistic, or like just
He's saying
nerdy.
I think
his mom's a paranoid schizophrenic, and she's in a mental institute.
Yeah, that's true. It's genetic.
Yeah, and he's also got like an eidetic memory, and he's got all the other stuff that usually that's usually your serial killer right there.
So my second podcast is going nuts because their first real episode records tomorrow night.
Your second podcast?
It's called Narf. I'm not kidding.
Second podcast?
Not
Are
a
you
real
cheating
faction.
on us, George?
Yep.
That's fair.
Brady Spice Life?
No, it's a podcast about shitty factions. So it's Mercs, Minions, Convergence, and Grimkin. It's called Not a Real Faction.
Nice.
So you betrayed us and just started your own podcast?
No, I didn't actually start it. I was asked to be on it.
So what happens if they want to start recording on Wednesdays?
I tell them where to stick it.
Oh. On Thursdays? Stick it on Thursdays.
Well, stick it on Thursdays or Tuesdays or some day that isn't Wednesday.
Okay, tonight's topics. We got 5 minutes, so let's just go through everything. Jason, you've got to wait. You've got to wait to see the chat because I think we're gonna be
I'm just on my phone.
We're gonna be chatless.
I'll chat on my phone. It's terrible, but
you did see that you got called out by JVM, Chris?
On Facebook?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we might talk about that a little because that'll be funny. Where is my friggin'...
no more word from Noel after I told him to go ahead. So he should be. Sorry, the guy who was laser cutting those templates for you, his name is Noel.
Okay.
So yeah, no word from him since he started cutting, but he usually is able to do a cut job like this in like 4 or 6 hours. So he should have that off to you tomorrow. And if you're really lucky, you'll have it in time for the tournament.
If not, whatever. I've got other guys that need. Like I've got lots of people who want things. So.
Okay, perfect. I was just really pleased that I managed to find the actual corners. Like they look exactly the same as the ones you already have.
Yep.
Chris, so you know, we can't talk during the intros and stuff. So what I'll do is, or George will do, is hold up our hand. And as long as our hand's up, everybody tries to be quiet and lets the intro play, because we won't be able to hear it.
Sounds good.
Other than that, everything's pretty straightforward. We're probably going to talk quite a bit about the new releases this week at the beginning. Pick your brains on there's all the new Trencher stuff that dropped this week. The Trencher Warcaster Jr., the new Trencher Dog.
It was at Lock and Load.
The Buster.
Gen Con.
I think the building dropped.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that. The new Circle theme was talked about. The new Merc theme has been talked about. We didn't talk about it last week.
I'm glad Chris can talk to the Signar stuff because it's been so long since I talked about Signar.
We got the 12 Days of Christmas.
I'm hardly an expert on Signar, but
I'm sure that you're more of an expert than us
on any faction,
it's including our own.
Yeah.
But George has a second whole podcaster who's going to be the expert. Well, you are kind of one of 5 people who play COC, so.
Yeah, unfortunately, all the other ones are good.
Yeah.
And they all like show up in the top of, tournaments and stuff. And then it's me and Julian from, or Matt's buddy there, Julian from.
You were consistently placing like top 3 just before you dumped COC again.
Yeah, that's true. But that was back when we had Theme Forces. Now we have Theme Force.
Well,
Bubba has a question. Why is the scrub on the cast?
Oh.
Bubba?
Because we've already
we allow Bubba, so I mean, Jesus.
I thought it was because we had our
It sets the bar
Bubba.
pretty fucking low.
Oh!
well, you're only allowed
Shots
so
fired.
many Bubba episodes, aren't you?
Well, that's true, yeah.
Like, if we hit max Bubba, then...
We can only lose so many viewers. I mean, we only got a couple left.
Oh, mercy.
You know we're going to have to bring him chocolate milk just to say sorry.
Yeah, you guys go ahead.
Oh, wow. Wow, he doesn't even know who you are.
I know.
Yeah.
What are you trying to do?
I was looking for the Bubba button, but it's not there.
No.
Aw.
I very carefully
We should just
didn't
always
put it
have
in.
the button.
We need to have the Bubba button, damn it. This would have
there's
been
a Bubba button.
There is a Bubba button normally, but George hit it, apparently. God damn it,
God
George.
damn it, George.
Changing everything on us.
Removing the Bubba button.
There's Siege with Instacover.
So traditionally, whenever we come back from a major con, George completely rebuilds the streaming system.
Yeah, that's because I have to take it away, and when I put it back, I fix the shit that was broken.
And what happens inevitably is
Something gets broken.
something doesn't work.
I would like to say that almost everything is working.
Remember that time we came back from the zoo and it was like 3 weeks of not working equipment?
It was
Yeah.
awesome. That was like,
I'm
Well,
slowly
there goes
learning.
all the viewership we built up at
Yeah.
the zoo.
yeah. Our very first podcast was like, thanks for joining us. Nothing
And we're
works.
gone.
We're gone. Good night.
I can't
times.
hear myself in my own headphones.
That's because your headphones are turned down. So is everybody else's, really?
I can
weird.
hear you just fine. You
Yeah, I
sound
can
pretty
hear you too.
balanced.
Like I can hear you guys, which is weird. Oh well,
That's normal.
Yeah.
maybe my brain is.
Nobody
finally
tell George
giving
that
in.
he's muted.
I can hear you just fine. All
Because
right.
I'm sitting right
uh,
next to you.
we're 40 seconds away, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody prepare, gird your loins. It's yet another evening of the death clock. I should probably turn
I know mine are girded.
your loins.
Yeah.
That's good. Oh my god, I'm so friggin' tired.
Wakey, wakey.
This is-
Hands off, snakey.
What?
Hands off cocks and on with socks.
Oh my god. Chris is like,
By that,
and
I
that was the
appreciate-
first and last time I was ever on the death clock.
And by that, I of course mean convergence.
All right, George, hit that button.
Recording live from the E. Haley Memorial Studios, straight out of Elmont, Ontario, it's time for This Death Clock Has 60 Minutes, your one and only weekly Warma Hordes news broadcast. It's 8 p.m. Wednesday night, the beers are cold, the news is fresh, and the death clock starts now.
Good evening, everybody. It's time for the death clock. It's been a couple of weeks because last week I wasn't even supposed to be here today, and last week we decided we just what's funny is we have so many good friends that we play War Machine with. We get them on the cast as often as we can, but it takes a good con to make some new friends that we can build up some new guests.
Well, to be fair, our guest tonight we've asked to be on a couple of times, and he has been busy.
He has been busy.
So we're lucky he was able to fit us in.
He's actually not locked in the basement with us. He
Yeah.
did escape the con, and
So let me introduce.
You can only put down so many bear traps.
Let me introduce our guest for this evening. This is Chris Orr is going to be our guest this evening. Chris and I, if you have watched any of our SOO coverage, Chris is one of my favorite people to have as my co-host because Chris knows stuff.
Yeah.
Like everything. Like I'll be like, so that model there, and he's like, that's the blah blah blah. It has a speed 7 with a reach 2 weapon, POW 13 weapon master. I'll be like, nobody knows that except for you, Chris, and maybe Bubba and Marc-Andre LeBlanc. So anyways, Chris, welcome to the Death Clock. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
We just came home from the CCBB. George, that was your event. That's like your big event of the year. You spend most of the year planning that. Tell me a bit about the sheer volume of prizes and how it went.
Oh my goodness! So we're lucky. A lot of people. I occasionally see these things pop up. How's it doing in other metas? I only have like 4 people to play against in my meta, and every time I see one of those, I thank my lucky stars. I sit in a city with 5 active stores that. While I was at CCBB, another store approached me and said, "Hey, we want to start carrying War Machine. Is there a night of the week left?"
Because that's what we need is
more
stores trying
Fortunately, this is up north of here
Oh, cool.
a little bit. So,
so like up in the like Peterborough Renfrew area?
no, closer than that.
Okay.
Far Gatineau.
Well,
not
that's
close
cool.
Gatineau. And so I'm lucky that I have all these stores around. And we counted it up after the last set of prizes came in. We gave away $2,200 worth of product.
So here's the funny thing is the guys during the WTC Canada players had a get-together over the weekend, and apparently, Chris, you can tell us the story, but you guys basically were like, let's go take all the prize support from the CCBB. So how did that come about? Because it was an amazing thing to have you guys all there. We had you and Bubba and Josh there. What was it?
Beauchamp.
And Beauchamp too. What was the decision that came down the pipeline to get you guys out?
Mainly, it was a couple of us were looking to qualify for War Machine Weekend. I didn't get to go to CCBB last year for whatever reason. I was working or something. And I know a couple of the guys did go and had a good time. And myself and Josh this year both had a lot of points and are very close to the wild card slot. So we thought this was a really good opportunity to come and get some more War Machine Weekend points.
And the result, of course, is that you qualified for War Machine, or you are in, right?
I'm in, and Josh got second, so a lot of points, which means I'm pretty sure he gets in on points. I'd be surprised if he doesn't.
Yeah, I would be very surprised if he doesn't because we were lucky enough to have, I think it was 35 players we had to buy. So he should get a decent chunk of points for second.
So let's go over, Maelstrom, I'd go over to you and ask you about how your week in War Machine was, but you were
Did you find
I got
Monster?
a game in last night.
You did?
Yeah.
What did you play?
Played Aubin last night.
Oh, nice. So how did that go?
It was pretty good. He was playing Amon, and I was playing Dark Host with gas speed 2, and it did not go well for him.
You brought
It was a bad matchup.
You
for
brought
Amon.
models all the way to Nova Scotia. Did you manage to get a game?
No, I didn't have time.
You didn't get to go.
I was hoping to, but
You didn't get to ruin the dreams of another meta?
No, I was only there for like 4 days, and it's just not enough time.
And the problem in Halifax, if people don't know, is that
they all came here.
Well, just one of them, but he was amazing. He was
Yeah.
our farthest member.
Nice.
But Monster, where a lot of guys play right downtown in
Yeah.
Halifax, has a couple of problems. There's no real parking.
Right.
And the part where you play is normally more store space. So basically, on the nights that they have games there, they basically have to take apart the back of the store. So it's a lot harder to get pickup games.
Right.
Which I assume you encountered.
All right. So let's talk about the CCBB. Let's talk about some of the games we had. I actually had a really good run, which seems to be traditional for the CCB for me.
You kind of shine at this event.
It seems to be the one event where I figure out how crap works.
If only for a short period of time.
I'm gonna and then it disappears. I'm gonna go over to Chris though first. Chris, you won the event, so give us some of your highlights, lowlights, and how you felt about the whole event in general.
It was a great event. I had a great time. It was 6 rounds, something like that.
Yeah.
I won't go through all of my games, but I basically know, how sometimes you go to a tournament and you get like that jerk that's like awful to play against or something. There was none of that. Everyone was great to play against. Everyone was super sporting. Didn't have any like tension or like awkward rules or anything like that, which was nice. Probably my closest game of the entire weekend was actually the semifinal game against Matt Goldfarb. He was playing Vlad 1. You guys actually recorded that game, so that'll be going up at some point. But that game, he essentially tabled me, and I only won by virtue of the clock. I had a lot of good games. So I went up against, off the top of my head, so I had a Haley 2 versus Scar 1 game, which I won on, I believe, scenario. I had a Kane 3 versus Striker 1 game, which was actually very interesting. I ended up assassinating him with Striker 1, which I thought was interesting. We then had, I believe I played against a Convergence player, playing LeConte. I had Vlad 1, and I had, in the finals was Amon versus Haley 2.
And that was against Josh, right?
That was against Josh, and again, that game was recorded.
So you got a couple of games in G over the course of the weekend.
I managed to get in a pair.
You've got some more Grimkin under your belt.
Yep.
But watching the games happen on the tables and seeing what was coming out of Gen Con, you're going to faction swap, aren't you?
Yeah. My first love has come back to me. It's time for some more Convergence.
He can't help but touches COC.
Yep.
That's where that's going. So my run was pretty cool. I did not expect to be able to go to the event. I was supposed to be in Belize, but a hurricane was descending on Belize, so we canceled at the last minute, and I'm like,
thank you, Hurricane.
sweet, I can go to play tournaments and stuff. And
Sure,
my
the
wife
people in
had
Belize weren't thinking that.
No, well, it turned out the
Well,
storm.
they should have come to CCBB, obviously.
The storm broke up just before it hit Belize
Oh,
anyway,
really? Nice.
and though it was rainy and windy all week, so I'm glad I wasn't there. So at the last minute, I was able to go because my wife had friends over for the weekend because she had planned on me not being there. So I was like, sweet. I packed up my Cephalix dude spam list, which is, as Bubba calls it, why don't you just play all the dudes? And so
Now you does, right?
Now I does play all the dudes. And I brought my 2 Siege Engine list, which are the 2 Siege Crawler list, which I've been working on for a while. And it actually did a lot better than I thought it would. It was surprisingly... people just aren't... I guess it's because it's not something people normally play. And
Well, you're just used to playing into such hard matches at the pub that when you get out into the general public, you can just like run the table.
Run the table. So my first round went really, really well. It was against a good friend of ours from the Kingston meta, Aggie's husband.
Oh, Ben.
Ben. And Ben was playing a new list that he had just built at the last minute. And so that was an unfortunate matchup for him because he just didn't know what all of his stuff did.
Was it full
That's
of
hard, yep.
absolutely gorgeously painted models?
No, actually, most of it was unpainted.
Okay,
that was
that's
the
hilarious.
craziest part about the whole thing.
I guess that's the problem when
It's
you're
a
a
new
commission
list.
painter.
Yeah.
No, when you're a commission painter,
That
you paint
too.
everybody's shit but your own.
And then my second round was into it was a rematch between me and Brad.
yay!
Because the last time we played was at basically the same event a few years ago, and I went in for a Kane top of 2 assassination, and I did not realize that he had dodge. And he just walked out of the Kane assassination, and Kane waffled in the wind. So there was a good rematch, and I won that one as well. And then I proceeded to lose my next 3 games, but somehow still came in
Well, as long as you
sixth.
lost to people who were really good, then your strength of schedule will be high enough to bump you up the ladder.
I ended up, my strength of schedule got me high enough that I ended up better than the person who I lost to in round 3, which was
Wow.
hilarious.
Weird.
Strength
cool.
of schedule is horrible except for every other version.
Yeah, so it was weird, but I came in 6th, which is actually a drop from last year. Last year I came in 4th. But the coolest part about the whole thing is I showed up with a model that I had worked on last year to be used as an entry into a painting competition. Never got a chance to. It was my scar bust. I put that in, and I had just finished up my Blood Bowl army. Or my Blood Bowl unit, and so
Team. The word you're looking for is team.
So I entered that as well because I'm pretty happy with the way that they looked. And I was like, that the competition was like 80 different models had been entered.
Yeah, I was kind of worried as an organizer how much painting competition there would be, and then like halfway through the day I had a chance to break away and go over and look at the models.
It was stiff, dude.
Amazing.
It was stiff, and I looked at Ben's models. Even Aggie had entered a model that had some of the best OSL I've seen done. They had some beautiful models on the table, and man, the people I knew, Brad had a couple of beautiful models in that entry as well, and I was stunned because I looked at the competition and I'm like, this is cool. I'm happy that I just, I showed up, and I'm happy, it'll be awesome if I draw anything. And I ended up taking 2 categories, which I was really excited about. So anyways, I don't want to, that's not a brag. I want to, man, I'm just stunned because, man, the competition was amazing, and the some of the quality of the paints were incredible. So I'm just kind of floored that I even measured
That you
up.
even managed to get in there.
So let's get on to tonight's topics. We have a bunch of news to cover because we were away well, not really away, but we didn't do news last week. We've got all the stuff that happened at Gen Con. The biggest one was like Signar friggin' Christmas at Gen Con. Let's talk a bit about what's happened since CID. We've got the best part is Chris has been playing some Signar, so we can kind of pick his brains on what these models mean. Let's talk about the new trencher models that got dropped. Chris, what were the new trencher models, and what do you think of them?
So I know there was Commander Anson Hitch, the Patrol Dog, the Trencher Junior Warcaster. Those are the 3 that I know that came out. I'm not sure if there was other ones.
Siege 2 came out as well, but we can
Siege
talk.
2, that's right. I know Dustin is super excited about Siege 2. I'm not as excited, but I have not been focusing on Signar as much lately. Like the last couple of years, I've been almost exclusively a Legion player. But he, I know, was super excited about Siege 2 and was fully prepared to bring him to WTC if he was available, but he's not.
Yeah. There we also had a sighting of the blockhouse.
The blockhouse had they showed it being painted. It wasn't on the table yet.
Yeah,
but
it looked smaller than I thought it would be.
I thought it was still a huge base though.
Well, it is on a huge base, but when you think of a huge base, most colossals these days sort of hang out over the edge of it. It's kind of weird to see something that's on a 120 mil base that actually fits inside a 120 mil base.
So I think, from what I understand, I mean, I stopped playing Signar like 2 years ago, and now I just get beat by Haley too. So what is it that I know that players were excited about the dog at one point quite a bit, and I know that the Privateer press staff are pretty excited about the dog.
Well, the Trencher Dog has a remove stealth, which Trencherlists really want. It's also able to dig in when it has friends. So that's actually sort of I'll say a new rule that they've added. With this Trencher CID was the idea of sort of a dig-in friend. If the model that this model is in base-to-base with digs in, this model is dug in.
Oh, that's cool.
And so the dog is a really great utility model. He digs in. He provides a lot to the Trencher theme force. So I think a lot of people, especially if you're playing Trenchers, is going to love him.
Dog also has annoyance, which is a big deal.
Yeah.
What about the? Was there anything that kind of piqued your interest about any of these new Trencher models? Are you going to be playing with the Trencher themes at all, Chris?
I will be once they come out. Basically, like my approach with the CID is I kind of look at it, but I don't spend a whole lot of time focusing on it because it can change so much. It just there's so many things that can change. You don't want to get attached to a model working a particular way, practice it, and then find out that it's completely different by the time it comes out. We've seen things like Mug changed how many times in the Troll CID.
Oh yeah, it was every couple of days it seemed to be changing.
And like there's various models like that. Probably out of the releases, like these new releases, the one I'm most excited about is the Trencher Journeyman. I think it adds a lot in terms of like options. So it lets PP create a Trencher theme force without having to include Junior, like the Arcane Shield Junior, but still giving you a little journeyman guy that can run like jacks for you, which is kind of neat. Like it basically means that you still have that as an option without just having to include Arcane Shield in the list, which I think is a neat idea. I also think it's a really nice, it's a very safe Warcaster or junior Warcaster because of Dig In, and it's got a decent stat line. Like it's Rat 6, Mat 6, it's Def and Arm 14, and then it has Dig In. So like it has Tough. So like you're less likely to lose that journeyman and then have your Jack go inert.
So after the Trencher stuff dropped, we've had a couple other pieces come out of Privateer Press. We have 2 insiders that came out because one a week basically, and both of them were Theme Force.
Well, have we actually talked about the fact that everybody's getting Theme Forces?
Well, we have talked about that everybody's getting Theme Forces, and I think that really applies to what we're about to talk about, which was the first one that came out was the new Merc Theme Force, where they've explained that basically this Theme Force is your catch-all. So if you take this thing, if you can take everything in Mercs, and you get some benefits. Now, questionable. We'll see what happens once it comes out. From what I've read, it seems like the benefits are pretty damn good. But the cool part is that this gives a different type of theme force, and the theory being that it sounds like it's possible that every faction will get a catch-all.
Well, we know that every faction is going to get, every model will be in a theme force.
Yeah, but yeah, every model's going to be in a theme force. But if every faction has a catch-all theme force that says this changes the game for me a little bit, because one of the complaints that I've had is that, well, the theme forces are cool, but doesn't that kind of focus your army to make you do something that was already kind of planned? Well, if every faction has a catch-all theme force, that means you can still play with stuff and still get your bonus points, which actually kind of levels the playing field. Jason, you and I have talked about this extensively. Is this the solution you were hoping for?
Yeah, actually it is. Being able to take whatever you want and still get theme bonuses it just negates that the kind of list lock feeling you get when designing a theme, and the lack of options like solos and stuff like that you can actually take. So having a catch-all is great. I think every faction should have one.
Chris, how do you feel about that idea? Do you think that's the direction PP is going? Is this a solution for you?
So this is the first that I've heard of that particular line of thought. My interpretation of the new Merc theme was it's so a few weeks ago into CID they put forward the idea of including like Merc units and solos and whatnot in other themes, basically opening up so you could take things like Wrong Eye and Snapjaw in Oracles of Annihilation, or put a Sacral Vault into some troll theme or whatever. And like one of the big complaints from Merc players was like, well, like what do we get from this? Like we don't that doesn't help our theme list at all. I feel like this Merc theme was there. Okay, this is your you can take those other things like Ayana and Holtz. So like in this list, you could take, basically like a Cephalix army or something, because it allows pretty much everything, and then add in Ayana and Holt or whatever else,
right.
That kind of deal. It would be neat if they put out a catch-all for every faction, but I don't know that they'll do that. It might be that that's their solution. I just think they're going to have more distinct theme forces than having one
catch-all. And it's going to take time. The thing is that we're all going to get a few themes coming out in the next month. And it should cover all of our models. So we're no longer left with models flailing in the wind. But it'll be interesting to see how this progresses and how, where all the theme forces end up when all is said and done. Second theme that was announced was they gave us a hint of the new Circle theme, which is the black clad theme.
Isn't that most of their casters?
Aren't
a lot of them black clouds?
I think a lot of them are, because I mean that's basically what Circle is. I mean, but there are Tharn casters as well, and a couple. I mean, there's a few other ones in there, but the main big heavy hitter, bulk of the heavy hitting spellcasters are all black clads. I have heard mixed reviews on the concept of the black clad theme force. The big thing is that they'll be able to make minions sack pawns. So you'll be able to say like I can sack pawn to that minion unit over there, which seems
those like 4-point bog trog traveler.
Yeah,
whatever those little crap guys I have that are
bog trog shamblers.
Those are the ones.
Hey, nice. Chris, did you get a chance to take a look at the new Circle theme force at all, and your thoughts?
Yeah, I did. My concern. So I dislike the sack pawn trend that seems to be happening. I feel that it's overly harsh on like assassination style warcasters, especially ones that do it with like ranged weapons. I feel almost like Lilith 3 has been pushed out of the meta by the existing sack pawn like theme forces and shield guard theme forces, and this is just like yet another one. The saving grace of this theme is that it feels much more restrictive than say Winter Guard Command. You're going to have only black clads. I could be wrong, but when reading it and based on the list that they put in that insider, I'm guessing it's only construct war beasts as opposed to all war beasts, in which case it's not as big a deal.
Yeah, I believe that's what it. I got that impression that it was just construct. I want to say it was construct light war beasts even, but anyway, it's off the top of my head.
No, they for sure were allowing heavies because they talked in the article about Wold Worgen's
right. You're
getting access to the +2 POW and being POW 18.
Yep. Well, I mean, and I think we've talked about that too. That especially like we play against Convergence quite often because you and I play a game like once a month, twice a month, and that sack pawn list that you have,
in the Destruction Initiative theme.
all the free sack pawns actually means
that's
that
actually Shield Guard. That's not.
Shield Guard, which is different. But even having that changes the way I mean, I just don't take certain casters because I know that you're just going to ignore half the crap that I can do. And sack pawn's even worse. I mean, I've got it on a stick with Cephalix, so I'm pretty
high value, low amount of shots basically gets taken off the table when you have a bunch of sack pawns or a bunch of shield guards. It doesn't really matter that you can deliver, say, a ranged POW 21 with Azrael or whatever if it's just going to get shield guarded to something with 1 hit point and arm 12.
Yeah, exactly. Big news, of course, is the 12 Days of Christmas CID has been hinted by Hungerford that it will drop tomorrow.
Yes. By the way, Hungerford, really? Tomorrow?
Yeah, it's like he doesn't even care about us.
Yeah, I know.
We'll bring it up when he's on the show.
They got tired of our bitching about dropping it like last minute on Wednesday.
He's like,
fuck you, we'll give you a week.
Yeah. So, Maelstrom, you've had a chance to look through all the different things, all the new toys that are coming out.
Some nice new toys.
You're looking forward, obviously, to what's the new Crix and Legion goodies that you're getting?
Crix is getting a solo that apparently does not lose incorporeal. She can do
no weapon,
no melee attacks. Apparently, she can throw some spells around and maintains her incorporeal status.
Sounds cool.
Yeah.
What about Legion? Because you're thinking about
the
maybe
weird bow.
No, that's just a solo that's coming out. Kralix is just a solo that's coming out next month, I believe.
Okay.
Legion for the 12 Factions of Christmas is getting. I like to call them the wives of the Black Frost Shard because they seem very, very similar to the Black Frost Shard in that there's 3 of them. They have some spells like Ice Cage, which the Black Frost Shard also has.
So it's another character unit.
Yeah, a character unit. They also have Puppet Master, which is fantastic.
Doesn't everybody in the 12 days? Everybody got Puppet Master.
Like everybody's getting some Puppet
and
Master.
Puppet Master.
Yeah, just in case for those really tight situations.
Chris, what are you excited about to check out in the 12 Days of Christmas?
Obviously, I'm interested in a Puppet Master unit. I think the new. I don't remember what Signar got actually. What did Signar get?
I'm not sure on Signar.
Oh yeah, I don't know either.
Let
They
me-
just got
Solo of
friggin'
some
800 new models. So
Yeah.
True.
hopefully it's crap, whatever it is. I'm pretty.
Tell us how you really feel, Will.
just someday I'll go back and I'll be like, thank God, I'm back in Signar where they've got all the stuff.
Yeah.
I get the Mercs is getting a new caster. We're getting the new Gaston, which sounds interesting. He's got a soul mechanic, which is always good. I've yet to see a caster, except for maybe Connie B, that has a soul mechanic that isn't great. He's got a soul mechanic, and there was something off the top of my head that was really cool about him. But it'll be interesting when we see him drop to see if he is going to be the new hotness.
Somebody on Battle College was speculating that he had Rate of Fire 4.
That would be awesome. Well, I believe there was something about his gun that he can. Anyway,
Yeah.
I'll remember it when I look at it
Something
again.
ridiculous, I'm
There's
sure.
something really cool about his gun. We'll find out about it when it drops tomorrow. George, you of course are super stoked because
New Convergence caster.
you haven't had a new caster since I don't know when.
Since it was released. We knew about all the casters at time of release, and we still have the same casters 3-4 years later.
So does this make them a faction now, or
No.
No, not a real faction.
you don't become a real faction until you have more casters than minions.
Oh,
Oh, fair.
That's how this works.
I wish Orion had come out a long time ago.
Yes.
Like, Virgins just needed that.
Yeah, just that little boost and something new to play with, because I think, you found it stagnant. You play the same two casters over and over and over.
Yeah,
and over and
well,
over.
and the problem is without a theme force currently for infantry, there's no reason to play any of the non-jack casters. Aurora sits on the shelf. Axis occasionally gets to go out and play because countercharge, but other than that, he's not. He's good, but he needs friends. Just so everybody remembers, we have Lieutenant Bastian Falk, the champion of the Order of the Wall, Captain Sofia Sirkova, Agrimony, the Crone of the Dying Strands,
that's the Crix one.
the Eminent Configurator Orion, the House Vair Siren, and the House Vair Harpy, and Gaston Cross, the Dire Troll Brawler, which is the double reach heavy for
that's what trolls have been waiting for that one forever.
the Wold White, the Ice Witches, which is what you were talking about, and Primus Gilam, and the Pharaoh Valkyries.
So new stuff tomorrow, and of course we'll talk about that probably in depth next week. But for now, there's a lot of unknowns. It'll be cool when we actually see it drop.
Yeah.
Tonight's roundtable, we'll get into the roundtable because we need to talk about that stuff eventually.
Yeah.
Well, so originally, when I talked to Chris, I thought this is great. We'll bring Chris on with some of our regular guests moving on to other games for a little while, or this happens because life happens. We haven't really talked much about Signar.
Yeah.
But as soon as I pinged Chris on it, he's like, dude, I just started on Signar. I'm not the expert. So what we're going to get him to do is talk about Legion, and this is. But I think what we need to address before we go into too many details on that is the idea of changing factions. Because there are there's three different types of players in War Machine generally that I find. There's either the guys that can never figure out their faction and they switch on a weekly basis, George.
There were so many better people to pick for that.
Oh yeah, but you're
right here.
you're pretty bad.
Yeah.
There are guys who are single faction only, which like they or in rare cases it's the person that has a Hordes faction and a War Machine faction, and they'll swap between the two, but rarely they just want to have them both. Like I play
Sounds like
Circle and I play Mercs, and I used to play Signar, but I don't swap back and forth out of those very often. And last but not least, there are the tactical changers. Like, so you play a faction for a very long time, and then you're like, you know what? It's time for something new. I think, Jason, you fit into the I own two factions. I swap rarely.
Yeah.
And you only really swapped this year to try something different for a while.
Yeah, I wanted to try War Machine Army.
So, Chris, let's talk a bit about why you decided to. You've been a hardcore Legion player for a long time. You're well known as a Legion player. What was it that inspired you to try Signar for a while?
Partly a bit of frustration. The way the meta is right now, I think, is not very good for Legion. I know there are those that will disagree with me, but I feel like they're in the roughest place they've been in a while. The combination... So SR 2017, I think, is really good for Legion in terms of terrain. Line of sight blocking terrain in the middle lets them play into games where they otherwise wouldn't be able to. But the meta that I'm in is extremely Khador heavy. I literally was in a hotel room with 4 Vlad 1 players at the same time.
Yeah.
So I was sitting there and I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, Vlad 1 is a problem, and it's just everywhere. And, like, Haley 2 is also a problem, and it's everywhere. Like, the 3 most popular factions right now are Krix, Khador, and Signar, and I don't think Legion has great matchups into any of those 3 right now. That's not to say that Legion is unplayable or anything like that, or that they can't win against those factions. It's just you have to work harder in those situations. And I found that I was having to basically constantly work harder than my opponent in order to get a win.
So it was a tactical move then. It was a thought out decision to help you do better. I mean, you're playing at a higher level of competition than we are, generally. And that that's an element. If you don't want to play with one hand tied behind your back, you're investing this kind of time.
Sometimes, not only can it be a strategic thing. Like I played some Khador, and playing Khador is like a break for your brain. You can just push models forward.
You know, Bubba's watching right now.
Yeah, hell yeah. You can just push models forward till they get in range of the axe, and then you apply axe to face. And for most of that type of list in Khador, it is just really relaxing to play because you're not like, oh, I have to do this weird shenanigan and this. It's like, no, I cast this spell, everything faster by 2 inches, run that way, and that's all you need to do. Whereas the mental load of a circle or a legion or something where you're like, I got to get this slipstream off and then maybe a throw here, and then I need to repulse these guys out of the zone, but I don't want to push them too far that I can't, strike them with my Angelius to get rid of that model before I, sprint away or something. That type of mental load is way harder. So I can imagine also making that type of change just for a brain break.
So let's talk to Maelstrom, because Maelstrom, you are switching factions right now, or
Yes.
you're getting ready to go back to your first love.
I have some Nerfs to build.
You're
first.
dusting off. You're dusting off the old.
Apparently, Nerfs are a thing now.
Apparently,
That's what Baron says.
Why are you switching back to Legion?
I haven't played. I played Legion for 2 years, and I started with Legion. So they're kind of my first.
You started with it.
I did.
You started with an Archangel.
Well, yeah,
You poor
that's
bastard.
Legion.
The best first purchase ever.
Best first purchase ever. And I haven't touched Legion since the themes dropped for them. And they have some really good themes. They're just missing a Hellmouth in those themes at the moment.
I don't think anybody's missing that.
No. So we have an opportunity basically for you to pick Or's brain, since he's been playing Legion for a while, and get some one-upmanship. I mean, you get to pick JVM's brain all the time,
Picking brains,
because you just you two have you have like a direct. Do you have like a direct hotline to JVM's house? Like, does he have a red phone at his house that's like, oh, Maelstrom's calling?
I'd like to think he does.
But we all know it's just an 8,000 text chat.
It's actually a blocked number.
Don't you remember the thread?
Don't call me anymore,
Don't
Jason.
you guys remember the thread on the
Stop
PB
it.
forums? The Ask JVM Anything thread?
No.
It was like 180 pages or something.
So Chris is here, though.
Yes,
Chris, talk to me about Legion. You already sort of gave us a hint as to where Legion stands right now. Where does it stand in the meta, and how do you get around what you're talking about, this difficulty against some of these Khador Signar lists?
So prior to SR 2017, one of the big I think the undisputed best caster in Legion at that point was Fianna 2, playing in Oracles with all the flying beasts. I think that was the best list there was, with the best caster there was. My issue with her in 2017 is the majority of my games, if I didn't just out-attrition my opponent, would be a scenario win. And it would be basically alphaing the opponent, feeding, holding for a turn, and then all of your stuff dies the turn after your feat, and then you have to try and score the last 2 points that you needed after your initial alpha. And now with needing that differential of 5 instead of just winning the race to 5, I don't think she can play that long game. She kind of gets up early, holds for a turn or two, and then cleans up. And if your opponent is able to score a flag or one zone or something, then you just can't do it. And you just run out of pieces. Nerafs die too easily, when they're not def 17 with dodge.
What are your sort of top casters right now? If you're going to go into Legion and you want to be able to deal with SR 2017, what are the casters to go to?
So most of the Legion players that I've talked to are switching to Abby 2 again, as their armor cracker. Jake feels that she's very good into Grimkin, and some of the things that Grimkin are bringing. I haven't personally played that matchup yet, but his reasoning seems sound. One of the casters that I was playing a lot. So the problem is it doesn't answer the Vlad 1 problem, which is one of the reasons that I was switching. But I was really enjoying Thagrosh 1. I think he's got a lot of game into a lot of things, especially with double Thrones of Everblight. That was the list that I was testing and was going to bring to WTC if I played Legion at WTC. The list was double Thrones of Everblight, Typhon, a Carnivian, a Naga, Forsaken, a Shepherd, a Spell Martyr, 2 Sorceress on Hellions, and I believe that's the list. There might be something else that I'm forgetting. It's an Oracles of Annihilation. And essentially, it's a brick army that moves up and turtles behind the thrones. With Death Shroud and their natural armor of 20, they're actually the most durable thing in Legion, except for a Blightbringer. And so they can kind of endure an alpha from the opponent, charge whatever it is, because they have flight. They can usually land beside the model that charged them and still get a charge. And then have the beast come in from behind and kill them as well. And I was enjoying that a lot.
So that's interesting. I don't think I've ever heard a Legion catcher's mitt list before. That's not what I think of when I think of Legion.
No, that's typically not what Legion excels at.
It's one of the reasons that I really like the Throne. For its price point and its durability, it's actually a really unique piece in Legion right now.
Yeah.
I was super mopey on the Throne going into CID, and even during CID, I just was like, this doesn't do enough, it's too high points, and when it came out after CID, they had dropped it 1 more point, so it had picked up an additional attack in the last week of CID, to going from 3 to 4, and then they gave it a point reduction down to 16 points, which is actually a really nice plate. Legion didn't have a 16-point option before, and a Throne of Everblight with Thagrosh, because he has Draconic Blessing, I think is the name of the spell, the +2 strength and immunity fire. It means that it hits as hard as a Furied Neraf, which anyone who plays Fianna knows that hits pretty hard. It is almost exactly the same as that. So there's a lot of output and a lot of surprising output that people don't expect. Combined with chain weapons, it actually hits things that have shields, like sentries or bucklers, like the little conservators or whatever from Convergence.
Yeah.
It rips through them very easily, and they're a really good piece.
So if that's your first list that you're taking into a 2017 Steamroller or Masters, what's your second list, and why do you have it?
So my second list was going to be Lilith 2, and a lot of people question that because she's kind of disappeared from the meta in Mark III. I feel that Lilith 2 has a pretty good game into Signar. It's not like an auto win or something, but it's a game. Especially because Signar right now it tends to play with huge bases, either Stormstriders or Stormwall. And basically, Lilith 2 can, in 2017, there's usually some sort of line of sight blocking terrain in the middle of the table. They can bunker behind that where a Colossal can't see them, but they can see a Colossal through whatever it is, and they can light one off the table, essentially. And so you pincushion a Stormwall or a Stormstrider, blow it off the table, and you're like, okay, now I'm playing, and you're down 20 or 40 points. Let's do this.
Jason, you're taking a second to reevaluate Legion. You're learning the new things. What are the theme forces, and which ones are you excited about making new lists around?
I think I remember when the theme forces, the Children of the Dragon and what's the other one?
Annihilation?
No, not Oracle's the one that came before it.
Ravens of War?
Ravens of War, yeah. When they came out, people were pretty disenfranchised with them, but I think with certain casters, they're pretty good. I see a lot of people running Callus 2 with Ravens of War, which is interesting because Callus 2 is kind of
Is
an
that the
enigma.
one that runs double...
Double Raptors.
Yeah, double Raptors.
Yeah. Sounds pretty interesting. I'm actually looking forward to trying them all because it's been 8 months, almost a year now since I've played Legion. So
I think Grimkin might be petrified of double Raptors.
Yeah,
where you get bonuses against everything, like
Yep.
you get that 3 dice against everything.
Yep.
And how do you catch them?
yeah,
Like that's the problem.
yeah,
It's like, okay, I've got 14 inches if you shot me with a bow on the skid and moans, but that is by far the fastest thing.
yeah. And I think Fianna into the child is terrifying for the child.
Oh yeah, as a personal anecdote, I just got eaten by a Fianna list.
Yeah,
The problem is that you have to boost to hit, and that means that you are wasting so much fury
Your
trying
resources.
to cut through
Yeah.
that you are going to leave a couple of heavies alive, and once you've left a couple of Legion glass cannons alive,
Yeah.
then they just come back on you.
yeah.
So let's go into advice for some new players, and I'll go to Chris first, and then we'll get your bead on some things there, Jason, as well. Chris, if I'm gonna go be starting playing Legion for the first time, what should I be looking at as far as casters, as far as battle groups? What's a good way to learn how to play Legion as a new player?
I think Thagrosh 1 is actually a really good learning caster. He's very forgiving. So he's probably one of the most durable casters in Legion, barring maybe like a little 3 or something. Because he's 14, 16. He gets a free Animus every turn, so it kind of stops a new player from like overspending Fury and not having transfers. And so then you can have excessive healing or spiny growth, whatever it is. He's got -2 strength to enemy models within his command range, so he's effectively armor 18 in melee. And then he has Fog of War, so he's harder to shoot. And then he still provides, he's got a damage buff. He lets you bring back a beast, which, especially if you're a new player, so one of the big mistakes you make as Legion is if you screw up, you lose 20 points at a time.
Yeah.
Which is why positioning is just so critical. Thagrosh should kind of get to hit the reset button and like try again. So he's kind of forgiving that way for newer players. And he has an amazing spell list. Twisted Form is probably one of the best spells on his card that you almost never cast, but when you do, it wins the game.
Like mutagenesis.
Yeah. I always like to say mutagenesis is the spell that a Legion player casts when the game ends.
Yeah.
Either they're going to do something amazing and kill you,
Yeah.
or they've just mutagenesis in the middle of everything and failed their assassination run.
So Jason, do you have any advice? You're starting up again. Anything?
I can't. Chris said it best.
All right, perfect.
Thagrosh is.
Yeah,
is
I love Thagrosh's ability to reset the peace trade.
yes.
So
yeah.
that
Especially with a guy like Typhon, who's like
Well,
23 or 24
it's
points.
So often when I was playing Legion, now this is way back.
Yeah.
But when I was playing Legion, I would always screw up the first part of the peace trade.
Right.
I would offer up something too big,
Yeah.
or I would not realize I had offered something up. And his ability to just say, "Okay, you can try that again,"
Yeah.
was one of the reasons that he was one of my favorite casters.
He can't bring back a colossal anymore, right?
No.
They
That was
They
the
fixed
old
that?
Mark II trick. Yeah.
But you gotta love a guy who just like shoves unknown crystals he found on the ground into his chest. Like,
Well, in his defense, he was like being talked to by a friggin' god for days on end until he went mad and hiked up a mountain and nearly died.
yeah, but can can't you imagine him just getting the wrong one, the one right next to the dragon?
Just gets like
spawn?
Bob's crystal, Bob's
no,
heart
I was
crystal.
thinking like a
Shit, that was just a mineral.
crap.
big chunk of granite,
Ow!
and he just dies.
That just really hurt. That's what happened to like the 3 before him.
yeah, he
Bob
is not the
Ross
first
and-
Ogren.
All right.
Oh my god.
So, what are the must-haves for all Legion players? Chris, what are the models? Like, if I'm going out and I'm going to go purchase what I need to be a Legion player tomorrow, what are the must-have models for you?
So the models that you will be putting in almost every competitive Legion list that are the backup models. They're not your workhorse models. They're just like the support pieces. A Naga and a Seraph. I basically don't build lists without those. Like that Thagrosh list I was talking about is probably the only list I've built in Mark III that didn't have a Seraph. Like they're in every list. Obviously, Shepherds and Forsaken for Fury management. The Forsaken is the best Fury management in the game right now, possibly, especially for the points. And then you want some workhorse beasts, so you want things like Angels and Carnidians. Typhon is amazing if you can take him. The theme forces make him less relevant than he was at the start of Mark III. Like, you basically can only go with the Thagroshes right now, unless we get a catch-all theme list or something.
Okay, I got one for you. I need your super secret tech on how to transport an Angelius.
You buy the Angelius battle foam.
100%, that is the answer.
Yeah.
Angelius battle foam.
Jason, we have a question
We had
from the
a
audience.
question from Tim the Enchanter, whoever that is. I don't know.
I've never heard of him.
He would like to know what your opinion is on Krissa as a starting caster, Chris.
So I don't like Krissa at all. I think
Does anybody?
she's both boring and ineffectual on the table.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a great
so-
combination.
She's not unplayable. She has some good abilities. She has a very good character beast now. As a battle box, it's actually one of the better battle boxes because it has a really good gun in it. And basically the way that game goes is you get to play keep away with the bolt thrower all game, and then feat and send the Nerif in to kill whatever their heavy is, and you still have 2 little shredders as transfer targets and POW 10 weapon masters when they need to go into melee.
Yeah.
So like it's a good little battle box. Like she actually is set up well to beat other battle boxes, but in terms of a caster, like you put her on the table against any of the big boogeymen, and she just falls apart.
All right, I think we're gonna leave the Legion talk behind for tonight. That's a good primer. Because I do want to talk to Chris about something else before we go tonight. So it's time for tonight's focus. I had an interesting experience at the CCBB. The biggest thing for me as a player who doesn't play competitively nearly often enough is this: I got scenarioed. Over and over and over again. And one of the things that Chris and I were talking about was, for all of the people saying that the scenarios were not that dynamic and that you would be able to just ignore certain scenarios, that is, in my experience this weekend, that is entirely frigging untrue, particularly the ones that have flags on your end. Those are a pain in the ass. So, Chris, because I got to pick your brains on this during CCBB, I think the audience might enjoy understanding a little bit about what we were talking about. We're going to talk about scenarioing harder, particularly with SR 2017. So let's get right into the nitty gritty. Let's talk about how dynamic these things really are, and get your advice on dealing with some of those really dynamic scenarios that like the ones with the flags, for example.
Yep. So one of the big things is positioning yourself to be able to contest. A lot of where people go wrong is they are like, the scenario's not live yet. I don't need to worry about it. And then when they do need to worry about it, they're locked out of position to actually go and stop it. It's one of the reasons that certain pieces are so valuable and you see them so much. So the Storm Pod from the Storm Wall, like, that is such a valuable piece for contesting zones that you couldn't otherwise get to. A lot of those incorporeal models people are bringing, that's a big deal. Am I losing you guys? Sorry.
No, we can hear you fine. Can you hear us?
Okay. It's going all blurry. Incorporeal models to run through weapons, models without magical weapons, so they can get to a spot that will contest. Just positioning yourself out. So there's this weird spot where like casters like Denny 1 or Haley 2 will feed on you and stop you being able to run to contest their scenario elements, be it the flag, the zone, whatever. And positioning yourself where you have one or more models that are like super fast and like keeping them back where they can't be feeded on, but they can still run to contest is a big deal. That's where things like, so in Legion, it's the Sorceress on Hellions really good for that. Other factions will have things like Gremlin Swarms or like Cavalry solos, that kind of thing. But basically, you want to try and be constantly contesting and making them have to kill things. You just don't want to be giving away too much for that. The other option is to just start scoring your own stuff. Like sometimes you just can get like make up the difference and stop the scenario play that way. So for example, in my game against Matt in the semifinals, he accidentally killboxed himself, which was a big deal. I was like, all right, like now the scenario is turned on. Like, can I close this out? I only scored to 4 in my turn, and rather than like just give up or just try and like overcommit, he made sure to score some points, which closed that gap, which made it harder to then push him out and win on scenario.
In the game that I had against Josh, one of the things that happened was I remembered ambush, which is a big deal for me. And he had been scoring points. He had a solo that was sitting on his back flag. And, of course, I always think of an ambushing unit as more of a harrying unit. I'm like, I'm going to run in. I'm going to kill some things that he did not expect me to kill. And I totally forgot the fact that he was sitting there standing on the flag, and I left myself like a quarter of an inch out of contesting.
Oh no!
When it would have been a really simple thing to just, it was a model that was waving in the wind too. This model had it was the leader model or whatever, hadn't done anything else.
Yeah.
All I needed to do was get in there. Now Josh didn't end up winning on scenario, but he could have. That was one of the comments that we looked at the game afterwards, and he was like, well, I had this amazing magical assassination. It was probably a little silly that I went and did that because ultimately I could have scored 4 points this round and won the game. And that probably would have been the safer play. If I had decel up on Thexus, that probably would have been what occurred to him. But because I left myself waving in the wind, a medium base caster, that to me is exactly my biggest problem was forgetting that the scenario is live, and trying to make sure that I always have something to shut down my opponent's point scoring.
One of the scariest things with Grimkin, especially with the sort of theme that has all the beasts in it, is the fact that you have up to 4 gremlin swarms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so
it's
they're
terrifying.
incorporeal and stealth. You get any of the scenarios that can give you a flag on your side, and it's like the pit all over again, where you can just start scoring points, and it's up to your opponent to try and figure out how to deal with that. Just make sure they're in there. If anybody is building lists without solos right now,
God.
Yeah, well, it's just something. There is an inclination with certain types of lists to have all meat and no filler. So you basically have almost zero support. Make sure that you're taking a couple little solos that are not necessarily combat solos. They can be, but solos that are going to be healthy enough to stay on a flag.
Like Gremlin Swarms.
Well,
Like Gremlin Swarms.
The Gremlin Swarm is sort of the like mystical perfect thing to do that.
Yeah.
But anything that has multiple boxes, high defense, high arm, some way to keep it from just disappearing on a turn.
Yeah.
When somebody gets a crack shot at it.
Yep.
Make sure you have a solo like that. And make sure you have a plan for contesting. If you're a brick, make sure you can.
At least,
afford
yeah,
to
that's what
spend
you
a
really
guy.
need. Chris, what are the sort of, when you're looking at the scenarios, what are the most dynamic scenarios, the ones that are going to be where the scenario is going to be key, and how do you deal with that?
So, spread the net is a big one. Like, that is probably one of the most live scenarios. I think if you play your cards right, you can actually score 5 points in that scenario. There's certain scenarios that are just super live, like recon. If your opponent doesn't actually come into the new recon, like, again, that's one of those scenarios where if you can actually score their flag, like, you can score 5 points in a single turn, and like, that's insane. So in those kinds of scenarios, so like, contesting is obviously important, but like, a lot of the time, making sure that you're getting into your own flag and whatnot is equally important. Like, there's so many people that just don't like start putting pressure on their opponent with the scenario, or like fail to keep up with the pressure from their opponent on the scenario. That's one of the things. So, like, as a competitive player, most competitive players, they'll try and so like throughout the game, I'm trying to be up on you on clock, up on you on scenario, and up on you on attrition, and basically crush you under the weight of all that pressure, and hoping that you basically crack, make a mistake, and I win the game. And that, like, failing to, like, for example, put a solo onto your flag when you can get a free CP can sometimes be the make or break of winning a game.
Yeah, and in the case of the game with Josh and I, that's exactly what happened. I cracked under the pressure and left my caster waving in the wind, not thinking about the fact that he could just walk his Arc Node over and kill me. And he was also sitting on 800 souls or something ridiculous like that. All right, guys, I think we're going to wrap up tonight's show. We're going to go into the lightning round.
The lightning round.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, 10 of the... It's been a while since we've done this. And Minty's back, by the way.
Nice.
Apparently the reason why he disappeared from Facebook was his account was flagged as one of those that's not your real name.
Oh, so he had to...
he had to cancel that and get a whole new account. So, but now it's all fixed and Minty's back. So that's good news for everybody. And then when we're done the lightning round, I want to get Chris to tell us about some of the fundraisers they're doing for the Team Canada WTC team. Bubba's given us some details on the last show that he was on, but Chris is really one of sort of the guys who headstones this stuff and makes sure that it happens. So I couldn't think of the right word. So here we go, guys. It's time for the lightning round. Nine okay
10?
questions and one ridiculously tough
okay.
one.
Gotcha.
All right, so Chris, this is your first lightning round. So all you need to do is buzz in if you know the answer. You can make a buzzing sound of any kind. So question number 1, what is the benefit of the spell Fire Group?
+2 range for your models in your battle group.
That is that is perfectly correct, sir. 2, who has the ability Foxhole Buddy? George.
Patrol dog.
Oh, it was George, and I'll give you the
Patrol
you
dog,
were going to say Patrol Dog. Question number 3. What is Siege's full name and current rank? George.
He's not a sergeant anymore. Commander Marcus Brisbane.
You're close. It was Colonel. It's
Colonel, damn it.
But I'll give you a point for Marcus Brisbane. That was pretty good. Question number 4. What does Saren, Omen of Everblight, call her weapon?
Nobody uses Saren.
Dagger.
You picked the worst caster.
I do these things on purpose to make them difficult. You know that.
I'm going to say Daddy.
It's actually, you're close. It's Death Spur. Question number 5. What is the strength of a grotesque raider?
The strength?
Nobody uses grotesques.
Go.
7?
It is 7. Very
Nice.
good.
Wow, nice.
Question number 6. How many tentacle attacks does the Throne of Everblight get? Jason.
4.
It is 4.
4
7.
delicious attacks.
Bael can be attached to what? Oh, Jason's on the ball tonight.
Hex Hunters.
That is correct. Question number 8.
He's the what of Everblight?
The Hound of Everblight.
There you go.
Question number 8. What does Lanissa Rasal's Winter Storm Power do?
Not work for Legion, that's
Makes me hate her.
Anybody?
No
Chris.
Pathfinder, Flight, or Isla Sight.
Correct, sir. Question number 9.
Isn't that just literally take away Legion's special
Yeah,
Legion,
rules?
basically
yeah.
take away Legion's rules. Question number 9. Who will Wrong Eye and Snapjaw work for? Chris.
Crix, Legion. Crix, Legion. Trolls, Minions, Circle. I believe that's the 5.
Your only one you're missing was Scorn, so we're going to give you the point for that one. That was good. And of course, yes, they work for Minions and in some Mercs lists.
Yep.
But I don't really count those because they're not real factions. Just kidding. Sorry, Minty. I burned myself at the same time. Okay, the Minty Fresh question of the week this week is, in what year, Iosian or human, did Ethrimbol, Everblight, fight the Iosians in Iceria?
456.
No.
455. Alex.
No.
This is the closest without going over. Is that what you're doing?
Chris, you got a guess?
125.
125 is incorrect. It was 390 AR or 4356 by the Iosian calendar, which was creepy that you were actually kind of like
that's
some
close.
numbers that was close.
Well, I knew it was around that time because that's when all of that shit was going down. But obviously, it was earlier than I thought.
Oh, yes, obviously.
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 Well,
You'll not believe it. Obviously.
obviously.
like, oh my God, it had to be before they,
It had to be
they went
before
on the big walk.
4563 or was it 3544? Okay, that's it for this week's lightning round, and pretty close to that's it for this week's Death Clock. Before we go, I want to get Chris, tell us about some of the fundraisers you have going on for Team Canada and how we can get involved.
So there's a big fundraiser tournament this upcoming Saturday. It's a WTC style 5-man team tournament. So that is running all day Saturday. The entry fee was $150. All the proceeds go towards Team Canada. There's going to be bake sale and raffle and that kind of thing. We're also selling our various WTC merchandise. So we have scenario zones, which are $50 with the cool, I don't know whether people have seen it, but it's like a juggernaut that's got a moose head with like a Canada goose on top with like a Legion saber.
They should see some of those on the streams. If you go back to earlier Moose Machine streams, you'll see them.
Yeah, we've had that one for a while. That was an awesome one.
Yeah.
And you guys have the sticks, right? The ultimate awesome sticks of awesome?
Yep. So we have the movement sticks, measuring sticks. So we have them available in 4-inch through 10-inch for, I believe it's $45. And then we have unique, I think to us, is 11 through 14-inch sticks. That's not something that's available for most people. And those are available for $30. And then we have a widget set, which is the 6, 4, 2, and 1, and then a 5, 3, half, and I think 2, and then proxy bases for $50. Again, those are all with like the Canada logo, and some Fury tokens, which are 10 for $5.
If you guys, George and I were just talking about this the other day because I had stolen your 14-inch stick.
Yeah.
By mistake. But like literally, that thing is the best. Like,
Oh, yeah.
so 12s and 14s. I don't know why, but that's like the thing I need 99% of the time.
Speed 6 things run 12.
Yes, exactly.
Speed 7 things run 14.
Well,
That's it.
Dwarves under Ostrom's feet. That's all you need to know.
Or most people's control area.
No, that's right. Exactly. George, you have a laundry list of events to tell us all
I'll
about.
just let you know about the latest, or
Yep.
the one that's coming up September 9th is the first of the Out of the Box series. It's a tournament series going on here in Ottawa. It's centered around the store Out of the Box. So come out, play some games. There are extra points for someone being brought to the tournament who has never played in a tournament before. So if you play War Machine and you have a friend who's relatively competitive, watch out because he will probably try and drag you along to at least one of these tournaments to try and get more points.
A couple other things I would be remiss not to mention. First off, don't forget that the Nova Open is coming up. If you have not bought your...
Get your tickets.
Get your tickets for the Nova... Remember, you don't have to be at the Nova Open to win the amazing Signar army that was put together by a whole bunch of really great painters and me. So make sure you get your tickets to the Nova. You can find out more about that at thenovafoundation.org. Secondly, I would be remiss if I did not mention the Ottawa Gatineau Figure Show coming up on October.
I saw a poster for this out of the box.
So it's on October 14th. It's going to be Jean, who runs this event, has a ton of awesome prizes. And here's the thing. You're competing against yourself with this. So if you are a good painter or you are just a painter that wants to learn more about and to become a better painter, If you're the best painter in your local meta, if you're the worst painter in your meta, and you just want to learn some new stuff, just go. Submit your figures, enjoy your day with a bunch of incredible painters, and because you're competing against yourself, you're just going to learn at what level you're at and get to learn stuff from some of the best painters out there. I mean, I must have picked Yom's brain last year for like 3 hours. Ajan is amazing to talk to. He will run you through all the reasons why you are an amazing painter and then tell you some great information on how to become a better one.
And if you're not a painter and you want to see some of the most gorgeous models known to man, just come out and look at the models because they are amazing.
And we have some cool information that Jean will be telling everybody more about this week is that Moose Machine is sponsoring the Best Painted Privateer Press Model Award this year.
Seems fitting.
And Jason designed up an awesome new Moosey
trophy.
special trophy just for this. Nice. So definitely show up. I'd love to meet you all. And I'm hoping to be there. It all depends on schedules. It looks like I can be there. I will if I am there. Come over and hang out with me. I am totally cool with just hanging with you all.
He'll make me go.
And
so
George
wants that.
George can hang out with you. I think that's it, right, guys?
Nope.
Oh,
we're forgetting less than an hour.
Fraser, the Vice President of Life?
Yes.
No, the Prime Minister.
Prime Minister
for life.
Vote for Fraser.
Trollblood Scrum is coming up in less than an hour.
Yeah.
10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time.
Going to tell us all about getting beat with 2-inch reach.
Beat with
weapons.
2-inch reach new trolls. Combo Smite Daryl, our good friend Combo Smite Daryl, is going to be on the show tonight to talk about all the trolley
goodness,
destroying your ass stuff.
Oh. I like my bum.
All right, before we go, I want to thank my two co-hosts and, of course, Mr. Orr for showing up. Thank you very much, Chris. It was awesome to have you on the show. We plan on having you come back on it another time for sure. Basically probably after the WTC, so you could tell us all about your adventures there.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks for having me.
Finally, we need to mention our sponsors. First up, the Wizard's Tower. Don't forget that if you are in Canada and you need to order your War Machine figures and you don't want to pay those ridiculous American taxes, exchange rates, the Wizard's Tower carries a full line of Privateer Press miniatures. They also are the best place to go if you're trying to get your Magic the Gathering on, which I know lots of our friends.
So when you want to
into.
sell all your Magic cards and buy an entire War Machine faction at once, they're a really great place to go.
There you go.
And if you're heading there Sunday nights, say hello to Connor. He's our new Ottawa champion there.
Woohoo! Next, of course, Muson Minis. They're having some problems with their the podcast feed this week.
I'm sure it'll be done.
But I'm sure it'll be fixed by tomorrow. So Muson Minis, of course, makes sure that you get to hear us because otherwise you wouldn't even know we exist.
If you're also an Infinity player, check out their new terrain. It is amazing. I'm hoping they'll use that same tech to get us some good 3D War Machine terrain. But, oh man, is that Infinity terrain nice.
Last but not least, if you like beer.
And we all do.
Go check out the Crooked Mile. They're here in Almont. They make beer. It's delicious.
We're hoping
Buy
they'll
gamers.
play in a bigger part in MooseCon next year.
Yes. Buy gamers. For everybody, I think is going to be their new tagline. I just came up with that, and I think I'm going to give it to them. All right, everybody, that's it for us for tonight. George, hit that button.
Dice down.
Moose Machine and This Death Clock Has 60 Minutes is a proud part of the Muse on Minis network. Podcasts go online every Thursday morning. You can watch the show live every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern on Twitch and keep in touch with us on our Facebook page. Just Google Moose Machine. If you can't find us, you're doing the internet wrong.
Smooth. It's like we've done that before.
Yeah.
Once or twice.
Good job, Chris. That was awesome, man.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Hey, man. Thank you for coming on. Thanks for coming out to the CCBB this week. It was really awesome to play games with you.
For sure. Thanks.
And I'm totally running that double throne thanks
Oh my
list.
god, I cannot wait to play against that. That sounds so awesome.
So that's one thing I'm actually kind of disappointed is that I'm not playing that at WTC because I created that list myself and I think it's really good.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I was also thinking about a Rias double thrones list just for laughs.
Mm-hmm.
And the good news is you own 2 thrones.
I do own 2
not a lot of people do. So.
That's right. Yep. Excellent. Thanks a lot, Chris.
No problem. Have a good night, guys.
You
All
too,
right,
man.
good night,
Cheers.
buddy. Well, everybody, thanks for joining us on the stream and all the people that joined the live show. It sounded like there was a lot of chat going on in there.
There was a lot of chat going on.
Was there a lot of like Bubba just slagging everybody?
Oh yeah, Bubba just shitting on everybody.
Tim asking deep, insightful questions, and then Bubba just shitting on people.
Brilliant. All right, guys, that's it for us. It's been an awesome evening, and I think we out.
Yeah.
All right. Good night, everybody.